Well, here we are again, huh, Toshiro? Another video filled with, I don't know, mediocrity, I guess. You know, Toshiro, I think it's just because he's one of the most popular characters in the series. He got his own movie, he was so popular at one point. Which, by the way, that indicates to me, like, oh, if you're just giving the most popular captain a movie, does that mean if Mayuri was the most popular captain, you would have given him a movie? That would have been pretty cool to watch, but no, we get stuck with Toshiro. I know a lot of you are going to be clicking on this video like, oh my god, he's talking about Toshiro and Hyorinmaru today. I'm so excited. I love Toshiro so much. Click, and I can't rise to that level, I'm sorry. Not even with mint chocolate chip ice cream, I can't even rise to that level, alright? I can get ice cream, and, like last time we did Mayori's video, I was really into that one. I was drawing on my face and doing the perfection speech, but with this one, I'm just like, well, I can go downstairs and get ice out of our fridge. That's the extent that I'm willing to exert on Toshiro. Do you crunch ice? I don't do it. Every time someone does it, it kind of like skeeves me out a little bit. Does they take a big block of ice and just put it in their mouth and just crunch? I'm like, that has to hurt your teeth, doesn't it? I just don't. Okay, well, anyway, we're talking about Hyorinmaru today, which is an ice sword. Okay, video's over. But okay, it isn't. But seriously, like, it is. I mean, like, it is an ice sword. If you were going to describe Hyorinmaru in just 2 words, ice sword. Pretty standard ability for most of manga. You have to have some character that can control ice and cold, and that's just how it goes, okay? And it does the things that you would expect an ice sword to do. You take out the sword and, can he shoot ice out when he swings it? Like, yup. Can he trap people in ice? I'm like, yup. Can he, make an ice clone that can bleed? I don't know why you would immediately jump to that conclusion, but yes, he can do that too! And his sword is pretty interesting in the sense that its Shikai abilities and bankai abilities, it's the same ability. It's Tenso Jurin, which means heaven's subjugation. It controls the weather, in the sense that he can make it, get really, the clouds gather and make it snow and make it hail and anything involving the cold and the ice. Alright, so he can't control the weather, completely. He can't be like, I command the sun to shine. He can't do that. But anything involving the cold weather, he can do that, okay? So, because the Shikai and the bankai are so similar, he can actually use any technique in his bankai in his Shikai as well. He can use, Ryu Senka and Hyoten Hyaka, so he can do all of that in his Shikai, he just chooses not to. A big theme, there's actually 2 of them involving his sword. The first theme is immaturity, okay? Because, as we all know, Toshiro is the youngest looking out of all of the Shinigami captains. That's the Soul Society, so he's a lot older than, your standard, teenager, but he looks like a teenager. He's pretty young. And so for that reason, whereas he can use bankai, his bankai is not matured to its full level yet. Alright, so this is a big theme of it, where he has these ice flowers behind him, and we originally thought the ice flowers were just a countdown for his bankai to disengage. His bankai, he can't maintain it because he's immature, so when the ice flowers all disintegrate, his bankai automatically disengages. During the final arc, we find out that's not really the case. What the countdown of the ice flowers really represent is when all the ice flowers disappear, that's when his bankai will be fully realized and he can enter his, mature, sexy Bishonen form. The only reason he hasn't done it before is if you look at the fight with Xiaolong Kufeng, one of the very few fights in the series that Toshiro's actually straight up won, because he's had 10 fights and he's only won 3 of them legitimately. It's actually kind of sad, considering how popular he is and how many fights he's had and everything. That doesn't mean he's lost all the other ones. Most of his fights honestly end in draws or end up getting interrupted. Loopy escapes with a Negacion, or, he's fighting Hollybell and all of a sudden, Aizen just shows up and cuts her down, and then that just interrupts the fight there. But, yeah. So, when he's using his bankai against Xiaolong, the ice flowers are disappearing, and right before that last flower cracks and disappears, he just starts geysering blood. And I think what the deal is with that, what Kubo was originally going for is, yeah, when the ice flowers all disappear, he'll go into his bankai, his true bankai, but if his body is not, matured enough, if he isn't strong enough to handle it, there'll be a huge backlash. It'll, hit him really hard in the face. So it's oh, the last flower's about to disappear, here I go, mature bankai, and then he drops. And so during that last fight with Gerard, all the ice flowers were about to disappear, and Byakuya's like, you better back off, Captain Hitsugaya, your bankai's about to get disengaged. And then, Toshiro just looks at Byakuya and he's like, when did I ever say all the ice flowers mean my bankai is disengaged? You're assuming things, Byakuya. And then just boom, big explosion, and boom, he comes out looking like that, and he's got the awesome, like, shoulder ice guards. It would have been cool to see him like that, like him to stay like that, but no, he doesn't. He just goes back to his child form 10 years later, which it's like, how long are you going to be stuck like that, Toshiro? I know Shinigami age slower than humans, but it's like 10 years until you're an actual adult, 50 years, 100 years, maybe 100 years, you'll actually look like this all the time. I don't know. So I guess it's implied that whenever he wants to get serious and go into his real bankai, he can at least now maintain it for a little while. I don't think he could maintain it for a tremendous amount of time, but, his fight with Gerard didn't last super long, so yeah, he could maintain the form if he really had to right now, okay? So, yeah, that's the situation with there. The other theme revolving around his sword is the theme of Buddhist hell, alright? Because the name Hyorinmaru can literally just be translated out to ice ring. Here's the kanji for it. That's just the kanji for ice right there, and then this is the kanji for circle or loop, and then this is the kanji for round. Okay, so ice ring. And then his bankai, Daiguren Hyorinmaru, Grand Crimson Lotus Ice Ring, okay? And so the references to ice and lotus and everything, this is to Naraka, which is the Buddhist hell. Now, you know how, like, Western depictions of hell are all about, like, fire and lava and, like, you burning for all eternity? Like how in Dante's Inferno. Well, Dante's Inferno is not a great example of that, because there were a few levels of Dante's Inferno that was all about fire, like level 6, the heretics, they get thrown in burning coffins and tombs, but, some of them involve, like, just storms and wind. There was a boiling lake of blood at one point, and during the last level of Dante's Inferno in the Lake of Kokitos, that was like a frozen wasteland, okay? So that's like the most bottom level. But when it comes to Buddhist hell, everything is frozen, and it's not a very pleasant area to be in. There's like 8 levels, I believe, in the Buddhist hell, and all of them suck. The first one, like, this is like, you seriously, like, Buddhists give you options, alright? You can be reincarnated into these different realms depending on how you live your life. But if you're really just that much of a screw up and you keep doing this shit and you eventually get thrown into Buddhist hell, oh man, you are screwed. So the punishment in just the first level, our Buddha in Naraka, is just an endless blizzard, like an endless Arctic wasteland, constantly snowing, constantly freezing cold, and you just get thrown in there completely stark naked, and you just have to wander this frozen, winterscape. You're just constantly getting battered by snow and freezing and getting blisters and frostbite all over your body, and you're stuck like that until, your sentence ends. Because nothing in Buddhism lasts forever, really, so it's not for an eternity. Don't worry, you're not gonna suffer there for eternity. You're only gonna suffer there for about 2 trillion years, give or take. A couple trillion years wandering around a blizzard, you'll be fine. And that's just the first level, okay? If Toshiro's Zanpakuto ability took more references to Buddhist hell, it would get a lot more disgusting. Because the second level is where all of your blisters and things you got on your body from the first level, they all pop and burst open. And so then you get to have frozen blood and pus all over you for, I think each level, like, increases the sentence, like, 20 times over, or doubles it. It, like, doubles it or something. So, if 2 trillion years was your punishment in the first level, then it's like 4 trillion years in the second level, 8 trillion in the next level, and then that just keeps going. And it just keeps going like that until you reach the bottommost levels. There's Padma, and then there's Mahapadma, and both of those levels involve basically your body itself just cracking open, and, like, your organs are exposed, and then, like, everything, your organs get frozen, and then the lowest level, Mahapadma, is just your whole body cracks open, and every part of you is just frozen, and you're stuck there for, like, a sextillion years or something ridiculous like that. So, yeah, and so there's little references throughout his bankai to that, like his Senen Hyoro, which is his 1,000-year ice prison, which 1,000 years actually seems like a lenient punishment when you compare that to, like, the trillions of years. But a lot of his techniques, he'll build them up, like, this is, Senen Hyoro, 1,000-year ice prison, and he, like, seals Luffy in it, and then how long does Luffy stay sealed in there? Like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe until the Negacion just breaks it and sucks him up. So it's like, you kind of giving your names. I know Toshiro, I think I know the reason why he's doing it. It's just he wants to build himself up. It's just like, yeah, I'm pretty awesome. I got an awesome sword. I'm way more cool than you think I am, right? Just because I'm a little kid doesn't mean I'm badass. I got this 1,000-year ice prison ability. You don't want to get trapped in that. And it turns out to be like, you know, the 5-minute ice prison, or it's 1,000 years if nobody just touches it and everybody just leaves it alone and the sun doesn't come out to melt it. It'll be 1,000 years then, yeah, sure. So, what exactly does his sword do when it gets released? Okay, well, his Shikai command is pretty sweet. It's reign over the frosted frozen skies, or frozen heavens, Hyorinmaru! And the sword itself doesn't actually change. Like, it's still a katana. He's got that fancy, like, 4-pointed star flower thing as his guard and then a blue handle. What it does give him is, like, a chain and like a sickle on the end of it, kind of like a Kusarigama kind of deal. And you have to remember, Hyorinmaru, the spirit, is a giant ice dragon. My spoon fell, is a giant ice dragon, so that's why he gets the sickle to kind of represent the dragon's tail, okay? And, you know, Tenso Jurin, he can change the weather, so, you know, giant ice dragons come out of his sword and attack his enemy and freeze them. If they're strong enough, though, most of the time, they just kind of break right out of it. It looks cool when a giant ice dragon's coming at you, like, ah! And then, like... And then you're like, oh, wait a second, I'm also super strong. And you just break out of it. Or you use Keto, or you're an Espada, or you just use a Cero and bust out of it. It's not that big of a deal, right? But it looks cool, right? And he can also take that sickle and swing it around and, like, trap his opponents, like snare their arms and then freeze them. It's like everything's cold to the touch with Toshiro. So that's something there. During the final arc, when he gets his bankai stolen, he adapts his Shikai a little bit. He works with Hineko, which is his Lieutenant Rangiku Zanpakuto, to kind of make a vacuum ice wall. What they do, it's actually really clever the way Kubo came up with this, is, you know, you'll have Hineko, which is ash, and then he'll freeze the ash, and then she'll remove that ash, and then inside of the ice pocket they created is just a vacuum. So it doesn't matter what fire hits it, whenever it melts the top layer of ice, it hits that vacuum wall, and it'll just stop, right? And so he has like a vacuum wall and a vacuum ice blade, but at the end of the day, you're fighting against the heat. You're fighting against Basby, okay? So, you know, you can be clever all you want, and he had some other tricks where he's taking ice and like weaving it together, like little strands of ice to make the wall a little stronger, and he had some tricks and stuff, and you gotta commemorate Toshiro for trying, but it's Basby. He's super hot. All he has to do is just like burning stomp and just blows away all the ice, and it's just, that's how it is, right? He can't, there's a definite limit to how much he can create with just his Shikai alone, right? So that's why he's got his bankai, Daiguren Hyorinmaru. Also, one of the other ones we got to see during the Soul Society arc, his bankai, also just kind of like how Mayuri, you know, Mayuri goes bankai, it immediately gets sliced in half by Uryu's Let's Still, so you're like, oh, okay, this is supposed to be the strongest level that a Shinigami can attain, and it got wiped out pretty quickly. And then later on, Toshiro uses his bankai against Aizen. Aizen just slices it down like that with his hypnosis, so it's like, oh man, you know, why are we supposed to be impressed by bankais again? You know, Renji's got taken out too. So far, the most impressive bankais we've seen are just Byakuyas and Ichigos. You know, all the other bankais we've been seeing, they don't last very long, it seems. You know what? It's like, they seems kind of flimsy, right? But, yeah, okay, so when he goes into his bankai, the dragon aesthetic is amped up. He's got dragon ice wings, and he's got an ice tail that he can swing around and attack people. He can do the ice clone thing I mentioned. He says he only likes to use it once per battle, though, because it's like the kind of trick that can only work on an opponent one time. My question is, are you limited to only making one ice clone? Because the ice clones, like, the way Kubo did this, like, that chapter when Haribel takes, like, her giant, like, blade arm shark tooth thing and just slices Toshiro in half, like, you see it, and you see the blood, and it's just like, holy crap, Toshiro's dead! And then later on, it's like, oh no, it's just an ice clone that could bleed. And I'm like, well, I mean, like, if he can control the color of his ice to kind of make, like, shaved ice treats, if he can do that, then that's not really blood. That's just, like, cherry-flavored shaved ice, you know, and then just falling out of him, right? So I guess he could do it more than once in the fight. I don't know why he doesn't. He's just like, well, yeah, it probably won't work again, so I probably shouldn't use it again. Maybe it takes a lot of time to prepare it and knead it and everything. I don't know. But yeah, so he has that ability. So yeah, he's got some other techniques. He's got like one where he can shoot out a bunch of icicles. He's got Ryusenka that stabs you and traps you in an ice flower. You think these techniques would all be really devastating, and they have really, really fancy names and all that stuff. Like, whoa, Ryusenka, Hailing Dragon Flower. That's going to be an incredible technique that the opponent can't possibly defeat from. And yeah, that doesn't last very long. His most devastating moves that we've seen so far are Hyoten Hyakaso, which is a pretty damn OP ability. What it is it summons snow, but not just regular snow. Like, the snow comes down on the opponent, and when it hits them, even like Hollybell, because Hollybell could summon like boiling water to blow away his ice. That's how they were kind of like in a stalemate. Like, he would throw ice, and then she would just melt the ice, and then he would take the water and freeze it again, and then there was this constant loop. But in this situation, even Hollybell couldn't melt it. Whenever the snowflake hits her blade, it just explodes into like an ice flower, just like on your body, and so your whole body is getting pelted with these snowflakes, and your whole body's frozen into this giant ice flower pillar. And it seems like Hollybell couldn't break out of it, right? You might say that's a win for Toshiro. And in fact, actually, I went on the Bleach wiki to get a full readout of all of Toshiro's fights that he's been in, right? I feel like I've done this before. You know, you gotta feel like it's been a while since I talked about Bleach regularly. You know, this series, the Zanpakuto series, is the first time I've had like a regular series about Bleach in like almost 3 years, right? So I can't remember everything I did, but I feel like I've done this before. Go on and check out all of Toshiro's fights to see really how good he's done. Like, what's his record, right? But on the wiki, they separate his fight with Hollybell into 2 separate fights. The fight when it's just a one-on-one between Toshiro and Hollybell, and then a second fight when it's Toshiro, Hiyori, and Lisa fighting Hollybell, okay? I don't really consider that 2 separate fights. And it says he won the first one and he lost the second. I don't consider that a fight. If you do, that's fine. But, you know, like, that's, like, she was only frozen for a little while. Like, he brought down the Hyoten Hyakaso, she was frozen, and then Fura showed up and broke her out, and then she was perfectly fine. It wasn't like she was mortally injured. It's not like she broke out of Hyoten Hyakaso, like, bleeding, and she can't fight any longer, you know? It would be kind of like, imagine if, like, you get into a fight with somebody, right? And you go up to them and you just punch them and deck them right in the face, and they drop and they like lose consciousness for a few seconds, and you're like, yeah! And then while you're going like, yeah! They get back up and they like take a rock and they smack you upside the face, and you get knocked down and you lose consciousness for a few seconds, and when you wake back up, the first thing you say is, okay, I just want to say, I did not lose that fight, okay? There were 2 fights there. I won the first one, he won the second. I did not lose. I won one of those fights. It's like, dude, it was the same fight. Like, if Toshiro and Hollybell's fight got interrupted for, like, a few days and they got back to it, like, alright, I'll give it to you. It's a different fight, but it's the same freaking fight. Alright, just because you add more people to it doesn't change it, alright? Also the fact that it's like, when you're rocking out to Fate Karakura Town, they're facing off against the Espada and Aizen and his, like, little group and everything, and it's like, listen, these are the Espada. These are all, like, Vasto Lordes. These are Hollows. Shinigami have been fighting Hollows for literally since time immemorial. It's just like, listen, we're all gonna square off. All the captains fight against Espadas. Y'all pick a challenge. You go at it. Toshiro, you take on the busty shark girl, and the fight's not over until one of you is dead. Alright, so I don't consider that a win or a loss for Toshiro. I consider that an interrupted fight, like a lot of the other ones he's had. You know, in case you're curious, the fights he's actually won, he defeated Xiaolong Kufang, which... Okay, you know what? I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you because, you know, he was in a Roncar and everything. He had to go Gentei Kaijo, but that was a cool fight. He beat Yukio, one of the Fullbringers, and I'm like, all right, well, that one's a little bit less impressive. I know Yukio could screw with reality, and he had his little, you know, computer screen and everything, but, you know, it's like the captain of the 10th Division of the Gotei 13 defeated an adolescent German boy. Woo! The greatest challenge, the greatest threat to the Soul Society has been vanquished! I'm like, yeah, okay. And then the last fight was against Kangdu during the the final arc. The 1,000-Year Blood War arc, when he got his Zanpakuto Bankai back, and he went all hollow form, and he defeated Kangdu. That was a cool fight. And the rest of the arc, yeah, he doesn't get any, so that kind of blows there, right? So, let's talk about the final part of the arc, though. Okay, so at the very end of the arc, he's fighting against Gerard. He goes into his mature form. He's got the cool shoulder pads and knee pads and everything, and he's like, I kind of don't like my adult self very much, while all the fangirls are just passing out in the background, like, oh my god, you're so kawaii! All right, great. So his techniques here, first one, he has this technique where just like he can freeze pretty much anything whenever he wants, even without his sword. He can just kind of like wave his hand and just everything gets frozen to the core. Of course, anything that touches him, like Gerard tries to grab him and he does, but it's just like, you're really gonna try to grab me in this form? Are you that dense? And his whole arm just freezes solid, like right down to the bone. And then he has his technique, the Shikai, what was it? Shikai Hyoketsu, or the Four Worlds Freeze. And that's like his ultimate, like, lockdown frozen ability. It's like the one ability he's showcased so far. Like, okay, this is an ice prison ability, the power to freeze your opponent that actually looks like it'll stick. You know, actually looks like okay, they're frozen to the bone, they're not coming back after this, and I'm sure if it was against any other opponent, it would have actually stuck. The problem is Gerard, he has a really broken ability, and he's kind of like Lilia in the sense like he's made out of light. Like his real core essence is not like a physical body. Like you can't just like damage Gerard's organs and hope that'll be enough to defeat him, because even if you blow off his head, it'll just like restructure with like light energy, and then he'll become like a giant light monster. And it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna have trouble freezing that, right? So it was an awesome scene when he freezes Gerard, like when he's in mid, he's about to attack him with his bow, and he just freezes him. And then you had Kenpachi down there, and then you had Byakuya, his like secret Senkai technique, and he like jabs him with a bunch of swords, and his head gets destroyed, and it's like, we did it! And he just reforms. It's like, crap, why doesn't he just die already? That would have been perfect, you know, because he ended up getting destroyed by Yuha just a few chapters later anyway. So I think Kubo just really wanted to hammer in there. He's like, oh yeah, no, if I had any way to defeat this guy, like maybe I would have had a way for them to win, but I don't now because I have to end the series, so sorry about that. But sorry fam, what are you gonna do, right? So, yeah, I mean, like, you can come up with a bunch of different abilities for Toshiro, really, just getting really creative with his ice. I think, like, you don't even, like, well, I guess this wouldn't work too well in the Bleach universe because characters can fly, but I'm like, you could just make, like, you know, ice sheets so they can't walk around very much, or have, like, a blizzard, like a weather hazard thing constantly swirling around you, so Toshiro can just use the blizzard to his advantage. He can have, like, giant ice blades just sticking out of the blizzard any direction, while, like, limits their opponent's visibility. Like, you can mess around with that a bunch of different ways. But yeah, it just seems like a lot of the fights he gets in just get, you know, interrupted, or he draws, or he doesn't really win. If anything, he doesn't win, right? And it sucks because, you know, he's one of the most popular characters. You think he would get like, oh man, Toshiro's gonna defeat all of the opposition every arc. He's gonna be like the Urza Scarlet of this series. Okay, maybe not that bad where Urza like wins like every fight she's in, but you know, like, oh, like, out of 10 fights he wins 7, something like that. But no, we don't really get that with Toshiro, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, his bankai's cool. I like it, you know, just for the aesthetic. It looks nice, and you know, the kanji and everything, and the, you know, harkens back to Buddhist hell. That's a pretty cool thing. I wonder if yeah, that's what you need to get, Toshiro. You need to get an ability where you freeze people and then they have pustules that just explode all over their body and they're covered with pus and blood. Yeah, that's the ability you need, okay? Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Now we're moving on to the final 2. We got Kaname Tozen, captain of the 9th Division's Suzumushi, and we got Byakuya Kuchiki, captain of the 6th Division's Senbon Zakura. So, yeah, we're gonna do the last 2 here. I'm gonna switch them up really good because I can't believe we're at the end of this series already. This is freaking nuts. You know, it's like, yeah, 13 weeks, almost up like that, you know. So, I hope you guys are ready. I hope it's Senbon Zakura for the end. Like, if we're gonna end it, let's just end it good. Let's just end it with the finale of that one. All right, are you guys ready? BAM! Yes! Okay, so it is Kaname Tozen's Suzumushi is going to be next. The freaky cricket one that makes people blind. That's going to be a cool one. And then we're going to finish off the entire series with Byakuya Kuchiki's Senbon Zakura. I knew it! I called it! So, check back here next time, guys. Thanks for watching. My ice cream is basically soup at the moment because it's kind of hot in this room, but I will eat the rest of it. I'm not even that big of a fan of ice cream, to be honest with you. I know it's weird. I know. You're gonna look at me like, Tekking, you don't like ice cream? What's wrong with you? It's just like, I'm a slow eater, just in general, so it's like, you know, this would account for how much I would normally eat ice cream if I was sitting at, like, an ice cream parlor or something. Like, if I wanted to eat ice cream, like, to my level, I would literally, like, I would literally just go up to the person and be like, okay, what kind of ice cream do you want? I'm like, I don't know, like Rocky Road, but can you only give me like literally like this much? Give me like a little tiny like super mini cone of Rocky Road, and I'll be able to eat that before it melts. Otherwise, I'm just never gonna finish it. It'll be soup on the ground. He's like, well, get a cup. I'm like, I'm just wasting ice cream at that point. You know, it's not the dessert for me. Okay, we all have different dessert choices. All right, later everybody. Signing out.